Welcome to Let's Talk Agri-Tech, the UK Agri-Tech Centre's podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a really exciting project, Thriving Roots Underpinning Total Soil Health, otherwise known as the Truth Project. It's a 3-year, £1 million research programme led by BOFIN alongside 4 other partners. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at all the amazing technology that's involved in this project, the partners and their roles in it. And we're going to be talking to Clemmie Gleeson, Head of Communications for BOFIN, and Dr. Emma Chapelhow, Open Innovation Programme Coordinator and Soil Health Specialist at the UK Agri-Tech Centre. So Clemmie, thanks for joining me today. It's really great to have you on the podcast to talk all about BOFIN and the amazing science you're doing. So to start, could you tell me a little bit about BOFIN?
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. So BOFIN is the British On-Farm Innovation Network, and it was set up by Tom Allen Stevens, who is a farmer from Oxfordshire, and he also has a background in agricultural journalism. So he's got many years experience being a farmer and talking to farmers and knowing what the issues are and what they want to be part of. Tom has a real passion for innovation, and particularly that farmers need to be at the forefront of that and driving it rather than just being told what to do and what they should be doing more of or less of on their farms. So BOFIN was set up really with that in mind, with farmers being involved in taking those new ideas forward and trialling out what does and doesn't work and bringing their expertise into it. But also that farmers' input to those improvements and projects would be valued. And so farmers in our trials are all paid for their time and resources in taking part.
We're really lucky at the UK Agri-Tech Centre to work quite closely with you on a number of different projects, 3 out of 4 of your large projects. If you don't mind telling me a little bit about them, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. First of all, we've got SLIMers. Now, SLIMers stands for Strategies Leading to Improved Management and Enhanced Resilience Against Slugs, which has the brilliant acronym of SLIMers, which is a 3-year, £2.6 million research programme involving more than 100 farms and 7 partners now. So that's led by BOFIN. And yes, UK Agri-Tech Centre is one of our partners in that. Then we've got the Truth Project, which we'll talk a bit more about in a bit, but that stands for Thriving Roots Underpinning Total Soil Health, which is a 3-year, £1 million research programme, again led by BOFIN with 4 partners in that one. And then the third project, which you're partnering with us on, is Probity. That's a platform to rate organisms bred for improved traits and yields. And that's really exciting. We only launched that one in August this year. It's a 3-year project, and it's looking at precision bred crops, and it's going to be the first time that precision bred crops are grown on actual commercial farms rather than just on research farms. In early days of that one at the moment, but it's really exciting times.
And so we're going to talk a little bit about the Truth Project. So could you just give me like a little overview of that and the kind of expertise and partners that you're bringing together?
So there's 2 key parts really to the Truth Project. And the first one is building on work done by PES Technologies. And I understand you're going to talk to Emma a bit later about that. And their amazing sensor, which they've just won the Innovator of the Year award in British Farming Awards for. So really great recognition for what they're doing. But what's really exciting next year is that our farmers, our root rangers, trialists are going to be testing that out on their farms in the field and seeing what it does and how it works for them. And so we're really looking forward to that. The second part really is about the Root Rangers platform. So I should have explained that the Root Rangers is our name for our farmer trialists. So this is in year 1, we had 9, and we're doubled that for year 2, which is 2024 going through to 2025. And these are farmers, just normal but very forward-thinking farmers that applied to be part of the project, that get paid for their involvement, and they run trials on their farm, testing various soil health testing measurements, so the soil cores and sampling methods, and working alongside scientists to test out what they're doing really and validate what they're doing. And so it gives farmers the chance to learn an awful lot about the health of their soil.
So just to loop back a little bit, why soils?
knowledge about soils has grown massively, hasn't it? In recent years, there's been a real surge in interest in this because farmers totally understand that the soil is key to everything that they do. Everything that they grow and produce on their farm comes from the soil. So we rely on that. It's a key resource and needs to be in tip-top health in order to do the job. Farmers need to know how best to understand their soils, they're being bombarded by information from the industry, from researchers, from all sides really, telling them about new methods, about new thinking, but which of those are actually going to deliver for farmers and help them do their job to the best of their ability?
I love that the project is really farmer focused, and I think that tailoring solutions and monitoring that work for an individual farm down to an individual field, I think that's part of the project that really excites me.
Yeah, totally, because every single farm and farmer is unique. Every field is unique. So there's no such thing as a one size fits all. So giving farmers the opportunity to really explore that and having a range of farms involved in the trials is really going to help with that.
So your route rangers, what does their day-to-day kind of involvement in the project look like?
So they each run their own trials, which is partly down to them and what they're doing on their farms. But they'll be testing out novel techniques of how to improve soil management. So we have got farmers who would call themselves regenerative, using regenerative techniques. We've got some who are conventional, plough-based, but we've also got some sort of somewhere in between. We've got a really interesting couple of farmers who are using Johnson Sue composting techniques, which sounds a bit weirdy-beardy, but actually is really backed by science. And this project's really helping them to do that because they can get some really great data on whether it is delivering for them or not. And the other sort of main thing they're doing is the soil sampling, which I've talked about, but also trialling different wheat lines from the John Innes Centre. So these are different varieties that have shown some really interesting traits. And so we're testing those alongside farm standard wheat to see if they are performing.
You've got a lot of people, a lot of experts, a lot of high-level technology as well as practical on-farm involvement. How is it to bring a collaboration together like that?
It's a really privileged position to be in because at BOFIN, we're really passionate about the farmer end and we're absolutely fascinated with what's going on in those labs at places like the John Innes Centre. It's incredible what they're working on. And so the opportunity to actually try and bridge the gap between lab and field is amazing. And it's really exciting to be involved in.
What's your favourite part of working on projects like Truth and Slimers and Probity?
Me personally, I have a background in agricultural journalism, so I have spent the last 25 years talking to farmers and hearing their stories and what they do and why, and hearing about their successes and opportunities and challenges. And I love that. And I love telling the story of BOFIN and the successes that our farmers are finding. So for me, it's all about that really, and spreading the word far and wide about what we do.
So one thing that I really enjoy about BOFIN is that you really reward farmers for their time and understand that it's worth a lot. So could you tell me just a little bit about the Soil Circle?
The Soil Circle is a specific discussion group in the Knowledge and Farming section of the Farming Forum. And anyone really is invited to be a member of that. You don't have to be a route ranger. It's open to anyone with an interest in soil health. But our route rangers are at the heart of that, and also the scientists that are involved from the partner organisations. So we encourage really open discussion on there, not just about the BOFIN route rangers and what they're doing day to day with their trials and what they're finding and challenges and things along the way, and findings, of course, the data that they're collecting, but also more general discussion about soil health to really build that knowledge base. There's also a resource hub on there where we share articles and scientific papers and all sorts on there. So just to help build the knowledge base really out there.
And there's some lively discussions on there, I think.
We're not always going to agree on everything, are we? And certainly with something like soil, there's going to be people who like doing things a certain way and others who do things another way. So, yeah, that's really good. That's all part of it because, yeah, as I said before, it's not one size fits all. And having that sort of melting pot of ideas and experiences and opinions on there is what makes it a valuable resource.
So it sounds like farmer engagement is the best bit of your job, Clemmie.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that the farmer really is at the centre of everything that we do at BOFIN. It's the reason we get up in the morning is to make things better for farmers and the wider industry. And yes, being part of that and being part of bringing cutting edge science and technology onto farms in a way that works for farmers is really exciting.
And you have a background in journalism, is that right?
That's right, yes. I was an agricultural journalist and then worked in PR before I joined BOFIN. And so talking to farmers and being around farmers, learning about farming and the science behind it has been something I've really loved for many years now. So yes, telling farmer stories and helping things get better is, something I'm really passionate about.
Thank you so much for joining us, Clemmie. It's been great to talk to you about what BOFIN's doing. It's all really exciting. And I know that me and my colleagues at the UK Agri-Tech Centre really love working with BOFIN.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much.
So next up, we're going to talk to Emma all about the specifics of the project, the technologies behind it and the impact that it could have. Hi, Emma. Thanks for joining me today to talk about the Truth Project. Can you tell me a little bit about the science side of it?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me today. The Truth Project is a really exciting project that we've got going on with a number of partners. It's been funded by the Farming Futures R&D Fund and is going over a few years. The Truth Project kind of answers some of these questions about healthy soils. In recent years, there's been an increased interest and pressure on farmers to maintain healthy soils. But that fundamentally comes down to what is a healthy soil. So the Truth Project aims to answer the question about what is a healthy soil, why it's important to maintain healthy soils, and what we can do to best arm our farmers to understand their soils better.
Can you tell me a little bit about why it's important that we prioritise healthy soils? Because I've also seen this shift in the narrative and how important it is.
Yeah, it's coming from an understanding of the soils. Underneath our feet is a whole community working hard to produce ecosystem services. There's been a lot of talk around carbon, and soil is one of the largest carbon sinks globally. So protecting that is important. But fundamentally, all of our plants and all of our food get their nutrients from the soils. Our soils are also home to loads of microorganisms, so we're only just beginning to understand the roles and functions they play. So it's really important for us to protect them. Historically, farming practices have been quite damaging to our soils, just from a lack of understanding with chemical runoff and overploughing, and we're beginning to understand how that's impacted the soils underneath us. So now we're here trying to restore our soils, but to do that, we have to understand them and know what's there. So Truth is really working to offer farmers measurement tools so they can see the improvements they're making from new practices.
Some of these new practices that are coming in, what kind of impact do they have on a farmer whose priorities are really practical, maybe yield driven, productivity driven?
Yeah, so the conversation at the moment is really driven by this regenerative agriculture movement. Just this idea of putting back into the soil and the system what you take out of it. We're seeing farmers leave crops in the field for longer, encouraging less bare soil and constant cover crop. This prevents things like leaching, to moving livestock at a faster rate between fields to prevent damage. There's conversations around organic farming, and we're also seeing a rise in technology that has shorter damages to soils, for instance, the minimum tillage movements. There's such a range of different things our farmers are trialing, but fundamentally they need to be able to see the difference they're making, and that's where we're starting to make real strides now.
You mentioned the Truth Project is going to give farmers this kind of toolkit for measurement and monitoring. Can you talk to me a little bit about the partners and the science that are involved?
Yes, so the Truth Project actually has quite a few prongs and different approaches that we're taking, and working in collaboration is really key. One of our partners is PES Technologies. They are developing an in-field sensor that smells the soils. And by that, it actually means that it's detecting the volatiles coming off the soil. But from this, and using machine learning protocols, they're able to imply the bacterial and fungal ratios in the soil. And from this, we can monitor the activity of the soil and its health by understanding the communities and what they're up to. And this is really valuable to the farmers and agronomists working together, because they can get that data in real time when they're stood in the field. Currently, farmers have to collect soil samples, post them, send them off to laboratories, wait a few weeks, and get these results. And this allows there to be a real-time data point for farmers to routinely measure. And by that,
can I just loop back? The technology smells the soil. The microorganisms are releasing volatiles, which are like small chemical molecules, and it picks those up and can recognize them.
Yes, absolutely. That's what's happening. This is a common method used in labs at the moment to tell us who's living in the soil. So PES are really taking strides by being able to do it out in the field. Currently, it looks a bit like a briefcase, and you slot your soil sample in, and it's able to smell these soils and detect these chemical compounds that are associated with known fungi and bacteria, and from that infer how many fungi we've got to how many bacteria we've got, and in turn that tells us how healthy the soil is. And by that,
and what kind of outputs can you get from this kind of data? How can you increase or decrease different fungal and bacterial populations in the soil?
Yeah, so this mostly tells us who's alive and living and functioning in the soil. And from that, you want a soil that's alive and performing these functions. So farmers can see if their new management techniques, whether the new products they've trialed, their new varieties they've trialed, have made a difference by routinely being able to go back into the field and test this with their agronomists or advisors.
And I love that it's so accessible to have an in-field sensor.
Yes, the Truth Project really is focused on this farmer design-led, including our trials with our academic partners. The farmers involved, so our root rangers, are really deciding the direction and working with our academics and learning what this means. And so it's really nice to have PES on the project, developing a tool that farmers can use in the future. And by that,
I know you're working with the University of Nottingham to do some soil core imaging. Could you talk to me a little bit about that and what role that plays in the Truth Project?
Yeah, so the soil has previously been described a bit of a black box. We're not quite sure what's happening underneath there. The moment we dig a hole, we're disrupting everything that's going on, and perhaps we're missing some of the nuances of the soil structure. So the University of Nottingham are using CT scanning, much like you use in hospitals, to look inside humans to see what's happening under the ground. And by that, what we've done is we've got our root rangers to take essentially a large piece of drain pipe, place that over their wheat palm, and by that into the ground with a big hammer and pulling it out. And this maintains the structure of the soil. And by the University of Nottingham are then putting it through their CT scanners and creating these 3D images of the root cause around the wheat plant. And by that, they are able to see the soil pores. They measure how big the soil pores there are, how many there are. This can give us an idea of who's living there and how they're moving around. And this links back to nutrient transfer across the soils. It gives us an indication of drainage and water movement throughout the soils and root penetration. They additionally are able to spot earthworms moving through the root cores as well, giving us an indication of the larger fauna that are living there, as well as plotting the root pathways. For instance, we watch the roots move around stones and avoid areas of compaction. And by that,
yeah, and I've seen some of the images and the 3D models that they've got and how they're analysing their structure, especially given that we do have a problem with surface water and drainage and rainfall in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've started feeding back some of the results to our farmers in the last few weeks. And we're really seeing a difference between those that suffered from the flooding and compaction Some of them are like really clearly compacted.
So you're also working with the John Innes Centre, I believe, on some sequencing.
Yeah, so the John Innes Centre are doing soil microbiome analysis and nitrification rates. The nitrification rate implies how active the soil is and what the microbes are up to, and this allows us to see the nutrient cycling efficiency of a soil, its fertility rates, and its aeration. And by that, they're also partnering this with microbial diversity and microbial functionality. And by this, we mean they can see who's living there and what they're doing. And this is really important for us to understand the function of the soil and how well it's able to perform its ecosystem's functions, like nutrient availability and carbon sequestration. Additionally, in light of the weather this year, it also allows us to understand ecosystem stability, so how quickly those microbes are able to recover from things like flooding or drought.
Have you done any comparison work on what the volatile analysis is showing is in the soil compared to maybe this more traditional method of measuring what's in the soil at the John Innes Centre?
Not yet. So we've just had all our results in the last month, and we're now moving forward to connect not just the soil microbiome analysis with the PES data, but bringing it all together, including Nottingham's root cause. And this is the next step in the project of seeing all this data brought together, seeing if those that have more complex pore structures do have a higher diversity of microbes, which is what the science tells us should happen. And by that...
So lastly, I know it's a really big project. There's loads of collaboration and a lot of academic partners as well. So I know you're working with the Crop Science Centre at Cambridge University as well. Can you tell me a bit about their role in the project?
Yes, so they're focusing in just on mycorrhizal fungi, and these are a network of fungi that grow both inside the plant and interact with the soil, creating this gateway between the plant and the soil to communicate. And this tells us a lot about the nutrient uptake. It also offers the plant an early warning system to changes in the ecosystem and things like soil-borne diseases as well. And they contribute to soil structure. So the idea is the more arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi in your soil and that can be detected in the plants, the healthier your soil. This is currently achieved by a microscope and counting the number of AMF. So it'd be really amazing if we can link the AMF seen in the microscope to the recordings we're getting from PES. And by that,
it's really exciting. All of this data is coming together after year one, and to see what's actually going on and how we can move to a more regenerative system in a productive way. So more broadly speaking, obviously, healthy soils are really important in food production. Can you touch on which of the big challenges that we're facing in food and farming that this project is looking at solving?
There are many challenges that farmers are facing around soil health, and truthers are really starting to answer some of these. But for me, our understanding of nutrients through this project are really fundamental. Farmers are being pressured to reduce their inputs on farm, and this makes them more affordable, but also reduces environmental damage. So if we can understand the nutrient cycle and by that further, and we can improve its efficiency, we're then helping farmers achieve these goals. And by that, additionally, I would say the ability for us to measure the activity and the impacts that we're having on the soils is the most fundamental thing that we need to achieve in the coming years. And by that,
so this kind of data-driven approach to really understand what's going on.
Yes, absolutely.
And lastly, I'd like to ask, what has been your favourite part of being involved in the Truth Project?
I think my favourite thing is how it's been farmer-led and working so closely with the root rangers and bringing them along on this journey. They're working with the academics as we understand the data. They're helping us improve the methods to collect samples, for instance, and their feedback has been really fundamental to success of this project. It also means we're getting the farmers involved in early stage innovation, and we're co-developing future products with them. We've been speaking with our farmers as we're coming to the end of year 1 and we're moving into the second year. I'd just love to share some of their feedback on the project. They've said they've got real data on the impacts of their practices. They're loving talking to the experts face to face and comparing farming practices. And fundamentally, the access to science and gaining in-depth knowledge of their own soils.
Amazing. It sounds like a really exciting project. I'm really looking forward to where it goes in the next few years and the impact that it's going to have. So thank you for talking about the science behind the truth.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great to hear from both Clemmie and Emma about this really exciting and innovative project. You can learn more about the project itself at the UK Agri-Tech Centre website at ukagritechcentre.com, or you can join the Soil Circle on bofin.org.uk.